So this is kind of like one of those things where, anytime that we do any type of merchandise, I like to get to know the person, like, my following, the people that I've worked with. As you know, I deal with a lot of athletes in the basketball sector and sports and entertainment, but you're the first person I've ever really, collaborated with or dealt with in gymnastics and mental health. And, there's tons of things that you're doing off of what do I call the triple beam? What do you call this? Off of the what? I can't say off the court, off the field. What is that? What is the terminology called?
We can call it like on the floor or something like that.
Oh, okay. Off the floor and on the floor. Okay. So I kind of want to start from the beginning. I guess tell me like where you're from and like, how did you even get into gymnastics? Like, this is not something that everybody just jumps into. I'm going to be a gymnast. How did this start?
Yeah. So my mom was a gymnast in high school and growing up, and she decided to put me in gymnastics when I was 3. She used to say I used to do cartwheels in the womb and was just constantly like active. I would play with toys upside down and would set up the trampoline behind the couch and flip over it. So it was just something that I definitely found myself doing naturally and fell in love immediately. So I'm from Seattle, Washington. There were no elite programs at the time when I was there. So we had to make a decision when I was 9 years old to whether we were gonna leave and pursue an elite career, Olympic path, or if I was gonna stay and just do the whole college situation. And I ended up leaving when I was 9. My dad stayed back with my 2 brothers, and then just my mom and my dad came, or my mom and one of my brothers came with me to Missouri was our first move. By the time I was 12, I made national team and was competing.
Time out. Okay, yeah. So you made nationals at 12. So like, what are the age group when it comes to nationals? Is it based off how good you are, or is it the age?
There is an age limit, or like you have to be, I think, around 11 or 12 to make it. Like most girls will do hopes if they're too young, and then you go to nationals or elite. So you have to qualify for elite, which comes after level 10 when you finish all the levels. If you want to stay level 10 and go college route, you typically just stay in that realm. If you're trying to go to Olympics, you qualify for elite, which is its whole own league from gymnastics. And from there, you have to qualify on the national teams. So my first year as an elite, I qualified the national team. Yeah.
Wow.
And
congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. So yeah, I started, competing for USA at that age.
Nice. So you're 12 years old and your mom says you're doing cartwheels in the womb. So like, you're pretty much destined for this. You were molded for this. You were beautifully molded for this.
Hey. I'm like, is this the perfect time to like turn around and be like, I am beautifully molded.
And we're going to talk about this hoodie a little later, but as you can see, this is, beautifully molded can mean tons of things. So you're 12 years old, you're competing in nationals, and how do you do your first competition? How does it go for you?
So I'm not going to say I was great. Like I was definitely, really watered down routines compared to everyone else. I hit both days. So I went 8 for 8, which is like, we have 4 events and then we did 2 a day. So I made everything, right? I got 10th place at nationals, which was the last spot for the national team.
Oh, really?
So I barely made it. And then the following year I switched teams and I fell 3 times and got second.
You fell 3 times and got second?
Mm-hmm. So that's how much I improved in a year.
Yeah, well, that's crazy. And well, when you got the 10th place, was it like motivation for you to be like, okay, I got 10th. It's time to like step this up right now? Or was it like, you're like, whatever, it's just my first time. It's not too much pressure anyway.
It was like, obviously I want to do as good as possible, but I didn't even, national team was a goal, but it was like, I'm young. I'm like, this is my first time stepping on the scene. It is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. But like, as I was watching the scoreboard, because it's like, I finished my events sooner than everyone else did, or like some people. So there were still people coming in, scores trickling in, and my name just kept dropping and dropping. And I remember watching it like, oh my God, am I about to make this or not? And there were like 2 girls and I was still in it. And
Wow. Okay. So you're 12. The next year you went from 10 to 2. And I'm sure that gave you a huge confidence boost. Like if you started your first year and then the next year you're getting second, and this is nationals, you're getting second.
Yeah.
When did you start taking this gymnastics serious and you were saying to yourself, I may be pretty good at this where I could, do some damage?
I think there were different levels to it, right? So when my family decided to move and almost essentially split up because of me, I
really?
started to take gymnastics a little bit more seriously. I'm like, oh, my parents don't even live together. They lived 11 years separate from each other because of my
Because
gymnastics.
for you.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's amazing.
So they put in sacrifices, I put in sacrifices. It was like a whole group effort of us. So I started taking
100%.
it serious when I was 9. And then when I made national team, it was like, oh man, you start going to national training camps, which is terrifying. If anyone knows about gymnastics and the ranch and Marta Caroli and Bella Caroli, like it's an environment that is not something you take lightly. So after I made
what do you
national
mean
team,
by
I
that
moved
as far as the environment? Like, is it just like, it's like boot camp where it's like, you better be flipping it 5,000 times. Don't mess up and drop or I'm going to throw you over. Like, what is that environment? Is because it's like almost like in the army, almost basically kind of, that's what it sounds like straight boot camp.
I mean, you definitely don't have it wrong when you said that. Like it's toxic. It's emotionally, mentally abusive. Sometimes it can be physically abusive. One of the best, it's like some testimonies have came out to where a girl literally would try to concuss herself on purpose so she wouldn't have to go to camps. Like it is an environment that people, it makes you that anxious. And I remember when I heard her statement about like her slamming her head against the bathtub, it was like, oh my God,
it's that serious.
It's that.
But you actually engaging in this, you were like, yo, this something ain't right here. This shit shouldn't be like this. You like, what was the moment for you, besides hearing the story of a girl that banged her head on the bathtub, to not go to boot camp? Was there something that when you did it was like, yo, this ain't what I signed up for. This ain't right. I mean, I'm good at what I'm doing. I'm loving they're pushing me, but we need to draw the line here.
Yeah. When you're in it, it's hard to see that, right? Because it's like you're so absorbed in it, like everyone around you is doing the same thing, and you're like, okay, I am not about to pussy out on this.
Yeah, exactly.
Get your stuff together. Let's go. And then definitely taking it's like you always kind of in the back of your mind, though, you're like, something might not be right about this, but no one validates that type of talk. And no one like is there to like really listen and let you know that you're right. And so I stayed silent for most of my career. And I remember when I got injured when I was 16. So I've been winning competitions. I'm like doing my thing. I feel like I'm on top of the world. And I get injured. They tell me I might not do gymnastics ever again. And
never again. They're like, it could be over for you. Wow. Okay.
So they wanted to go in and fuse my vertebrae. They wanted to put a rod and screws in, which would have, obviously stifled a lot of my movement and probably would have not been able to do a lot of gymnastics after that. But decided to get multiple different opinions from it and was told that I should try to do it as much as possible. Like, and if something happens, it happens. Like I could have been paralyzed because it was super close to my spinal cord. I was getting x-rays every 6 weeks to make sure that my vertebrae was stable enough and wasn't slipping. But anyways, through that period, I had 2 years off because I was in a back brace. I got my shoulder repaired, came back, dislocated my other shoulder, had to get that repaired. So total of 2 years. And I have a lot of time to sit there and think about what I've been put through, what I've like endured. And I was sitting there like, this was abuse, A lot of our coaches are from like Russia, Romania, Armenia, and that is what was bred into them. Like, this is how you become successful, and this is the only way. So it's our way or the highway, you feel? And
exactly,
you don't have a lot to say as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old.
Exactly. Oh yeah, because you're young. You don't even know what's right or wrong at that age. And you're like, okay, well, if this is what they say and they breed champions, I guess this is what it is. Wow.
I'm going to do it. A really great film to watch for like anybody is called Athlete A. It just came out on Netflix like last year. And it kind of talks about everything that we go through at camp. It talks about the sexual assault cases within the national team doctor. and it's
Wow.
wild, the journey.
When you did these camps, did you go back after your 2 years when you got hurt? Did you go back to these camps for training camp again?
Yeah, so I decided throughout those 2 years that my body was not going to be able to handle all of, I was training 36 hours a week, 7 hours a day. Just it was a lot on my body, and if I wanted to continue doing gymnastics at any capacity, it couldn't be elite. So I dropped back to level 10. I never went back to a camp again, and I remember coming back, I still had my natural talent and my ability, and they wanted me to go to Pan Am's, which is an international competition for elite. And I considered it. I heavily considered it, and I remember my old coach. So this is weird, but we had different teams within the same gym. And so I switched teams during that time to be coached under Laurent and Cecile, who helped me a lot try even get back to gymnastics. And my old coach walked up to them and said, if she even wants to think about going to Pan Am's, she needs to lose weight and like all this stuff. And I was like, listen, I had a good run with this life. Like, I'm happy.
Like, what year is this?
2015, I believe, 2015 or 14.
Okay. We're skipping all the accolades that you've done before the 2015. You're a 6-time All-American, 4-time member of the USA Gymnastics Junior National Team. You're the 2011 Junior National Champion. Like, how do you just skip all of that? And it shows you how much that gymnastic stuff is far removed. And I'm here to remind you that you were always beautifully molded. You were always great. And it's a lot of times, like you said, you do things like maybe go to a training camp that kind of like flushes all these good memories or this love or this joy that you have for this sport. And it really makes you rethink, like, is it all worth it? But I'm here to say, yo, you've always been champion, right? So let's go off your things. 6-time All-American, 4-time member USA Gymnastics, Junior National Team champion in 2011. They're winner of the 2013 American Cup. What exactly is the American Cup? What is that?
All right, so the American Cup is one of the biggest international competitions I've ever attended. It was my first and only senior debut competition. So when I was a junior national team member, I couldn't attend this.
Got it.
It happens, I think, every 2 years, and it's like the beginning of the year to show everyone where they're at in a sense. And it's like, if you go to this, you're most likely going to go to Worlds. It's like top 2 in the country get selected for this. So me and Simon Biles, who I'm sure everyone hopefully knows who that is.
That is crazy. You got selected. Like, come on. That is so wild. And it just shows your character, right? It's like, you're so much bigger than the sport.
Yeah. So actually another fun fact with that, not to like hype myself up anything, but to hype myself up, I am one of the last people that ever beat Simone. So that competition, 2013 American Cup, was the last time Simone has ever been beaten.
And wow.
And so that also puts into her character because she's gone unbeaten for almost 10 years now. How crazy is that?
Wow. Yeah. So you beat her in 2013 and no one's beaten her since. So look at the impact that you've had on the floor, on the beam with some of the greatest people of all time.
During American Cup is when like my whole body started falling apart. Like I had both my shoulders torn, my vertebrae at this meet. So
you say your vertebrae what?
Was sticking out.
After so you had to work to beat Simone Biles then. Like vertebrae sticking out, like shoulders gone, but you got the win though. Hey, you can always go back, and any kid, any female, youngster, male, 2013, you defeated Simone Biles, but your body was also defeated. But you remain undefeated because you're still here. You still stuck with it because you attended UCLA and you competed there as well, right?
Yeah.
Was it more like you want to do this for my parents? Like, yo, my parents split up for 11 years for me to do this gymnastic stuff. I'm going to stick with it. Or was it just like, you're like, I have to continue on. Like, this is what I know. Like, tell me about that process of like, if my vertebrae sticking out and my shoulders are jacked, I'm like, peace. But, you're like, nah, I'm gone. I'm still gone. Was it more of the education thing? I want to go to college, or like, explain that part. Cause you're competing in UCLA for 3 years, 16 and 19.
So I actually, it's funny because this was the first time that I ever in my career, I was like, I'm doing this for me. Because every time before that was, well, my parents split up. Well, my coaches expect me to go to the Olympics. Well, I put in this much time and effort, I might as well. But for the first time when I had the 2 years off, I'm sitting there like I wanted to quit. Of course, that would have been the easiest route for me. Like, hey, my body is messed up. Like, I'm done. But for the first time, I was like, what do I want? Like, I've trained. This gymnastics has been 21 years of my life. What am I gonna do? Like, I'm obviously naturally talented. College was the reward for me, for all the abuse that I had put through, for all of the like hardships. College was like that breath of fresh air within the gymnastics world, where yeah, we all deserve that.
100%. 100%. So I got a question for you. One thing that I've noticed and I've heard by looking at your story is that when you started to compete, you used kind of like, more, I don't want to say modern, but more trending music and more trending moves and dances. Is that something that kind of like put you out there and made you stand out more because of your choice of music? And was there any repercussions? Because when you come into a sport that's predominantly like, it's the same thing, you're used to the same music, I don't know, the same sounds, not more hip hop, but like you kind of switched that narrative. Did it start when you started doing it for you, or were you always like that?
I feel like that's something that UCLA has done a really good job with. Like UCLA gymnastics kind of put this fun floor routine type of modern dance on the map for gymnastics. And so a girl actually from LSU was the first person to go viral in probably 2014, 15. She had a hip hop routine, goes viral with 5 million roughly views. And then it just keeps going from there. Then UCLA hits next. Sofina de Jesus was the first person who really did hip hop, 40,000 million views, gets on Ellen and stuff. Then Hallie. So it wasn't me that started it. I am so lucky to have this path that was mapped out for me. And then joining UCLA gave me this opportunity to express myself finally for the first time in gymnastics. So we started crafting my routines, okay, what speaks to each person individually? And I decided that I wanted to go with this type of music. And were there repercussions? Funny you ask, because my senior year, there was a huge, thing that happened with Michael Jackson's documentary coming out, Never Leaving Neverland. And that posed a lot of questions for me and what I wanted to do with my routine that I had created. And it's like, I've already gone viral.
It was because you used his music. Oh, okay.
And it's like, and no one wants to listen when someone creates a narrative, right, in their head as to 100%. Why I changed my floor routine. And I had so many people coming at me, like Michael Jackson fans calling me a snake for changing my routine. It was like, it almost felt like all Michael Jackson fans got in a huddle one day and came at me the next. And it was like,
wow. So hold on. So you had Michael Jackson's song and that was your routine. And then when the documentary came out, you switched the Michael Jackson song to something else. Is that what you're saying happened?
So it was kind of like that. He came out and I had always wanted 2 routines my senior year. I talked to Miss Val every single day, like, can I get 2 routines this year? Can I? And cause that's not something that happens. You keep your routine for a full year. And I just felt like I had done a lot with this routine already. And
got it.
I feel like I wasted the first 2 years of my college career because I wasn't taking it seriously. I was still like a broken child. And so finally I get my stuff together. I'm like, I want to do something different. And anyways, this whole documentary coming out kind of pushed a different narrative where I was like, well, I strongly support women. Like, I am a huge, feminist. I care about women. I want to support women. And throughout that, we decided to change the narrative to all female artists. So I changed my routine going into postseason. Pac-12 was the first meet that I competed. I remember Miss Val, my coach, her boss came in and was like, well, you've been getting 10s all year. So what if you don't get a 10 this time around? And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take the risk. And I ended up getting a 10. 6 that year, 11 career total, 11 total for my career. But my RQS, which is like the average score for post or preseason was a 10, which is kind of crazy when I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. So I want to go back. I want to go back to this a little bit because you're very strong. You're a feminist. You're very strong about, body shaming, and a lot of these things have molded you. And I don't want to keep, referencing molded because, your whole brand that you're building now and your visuals is beautifully molded. And would you say that kind of how the Michael Jackson thing, the narrative kind of pushed you to be more about individualism, more about like controlling your own narrative, not allowing the media to control the narrative? Would you say that was a changing point in your career on how you looked at yourself and how you wanted the world to see yourself? Because that's huge. Like you said, you usually keep the same routine for a year, and you're like, you know what? With these things that are going on, I'm going to switch my routine, new music, and change it. Because I mean, I think that takes a lot of guts to kind of do that. Would you say that was a inflection point in your career where it's like, you know what, I'm doing this because I want to control my own narrative. I want to use my platform to talk about the things that I believe.
Yeah, I feel like my whole college career was kind of building towards this moment and standing for what I stand up for. My coach she always told me if you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything, right? So 100%. I'm sitting here freaking out about people coming and having a problem with what I say. And she's like, dude, you're doing exactly what you want. You're standing for what you believe in. And it was that moment it definitely was the turning moment, because it's guess what? My routine, the reason why it went so viral is not only because I had modern music and, dance moves that people could relate to or get into. It was that I brought joy to so many people. Yeah. And it was if this routine made one person uncomfortable based upon sexual assault that a bunch of my teammates have experienced sexual assault, then guess what? I want to take out whatever makes anyone uncomfortable, because that is what I stand for. I stand for joy. I stand for using your voice for the best.
100%, because that's true. Because it wasn't just about you at this moment. It was more about you date back to these boot camps, and you're seeing the things that these women have been through and gone through. And then you fast forward to now, and maybe your teammates may have been going through some certain things. In fact, what Michael Jackson song did you use? I know this is off topic. What song was it that you used in your routine? What was it?
We had a whole we had a whole mashup of this stuff. My whole entire.
Oh, it was a mashup. Oh, okay.
My whole junior routine didn't have one specific song. It was Michael Jackson stuff.
Oh, you was you had his whole career. Oh, so it was it wasn't just one song. You had the mash. You're okay, that makes sense. And it's crazy because Michael Jackson's music does give you that frequency and that move to dance, and but it's bigger than that though. It's we got somebody that wants to come in really fast. Ask you a quick question. Hold on. Let's see what we got going on here.
Okay.
Yo.
Hey.
Nice hoodie, brother. Nice hoodie.
Yes, sir.
It looks good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, so
how y'all doing?
We good, man. We're good. I want to say first, thank you for joining. Me and Katelyn have been talking for the past 30 minutes. We've been talking about her whole career, what she's done. We just kind of stopped at UCLA and kind of that was the end of her gymnastics career. And I wanted to kind of bring you in because, she had to make some big time decisions on gymnastics in college and what to do next. And it kind of really made me think of you a lot, because I've known you since we were youngsters. You went to the same high school as me. And your journey has been kind of, I don't want to say similar to Katelyn's, but it's been similar in the fact that you had to overcome a lot of things. You started your college career at Drexel, a smaller, mid-major school, and then you transfer up to a Louisville, which is, that's big time basketball right there. You know what I'm saying? So tell me about that transition from going from Drexel to Louisville, and what type of mental did you have to have and believing in yourself to controlling your own narrative and taking that next step up. And then I'm going to get back to Katelyn's story to bring it all together.
Yeah, I mean, it was really just believing in myself. I mean, from knowing that I wanted to go to Drexel, I quote unquote wasn't good enough to play at the highest level coming out. But for me, it was just a matter of development, just trying to always get better, trying to find ways to get better day in and day out. My first day on campus at Drexel, got to school like 10 p.m., packed all my bags, and at midnight I texted one of the coaches and told him to open up the gym because I just wanted to work and just, you know, be better. But from going to Drexel, going to Louisville, it was just about taking a leap of faith. You know, I believed in myself, I believed in my talents. I knew that everything that I wanted to do that I could accomplish, which was become a pro, and it was just believing in that. I took a leap of faith, and you know, everything worked out the way that it was supposed to. You know, some people could say that, oh, you know, I went to Louisville, we had the scandal, we had all this stuff, didn't play in the postseason. But for me, that was a part of my story. That's
part of your story.
That's what makes me who I am today. Was continue
100%.
to battle adversity and be resilient through all those tough times.
And it's funny that you talked about, like, I don't want to get into the scandal thing, but me and Katelyn were just talking about how when you were competing and you used a certain type of music and you had to switch that because it almost was a scandal. And like, you had to take the leap of faith to, you know, get removed from this Michael Jackson music in your routine. So can you bring that back to Damion and kind of let him know how you had to almost take a leap of faith in changing your whole floor routine due to something like that, and it worked out for you as well?
Yeah. So basically during this routine went viral right in January, and then the documentary comes out, I think sometime in March, about Michael Jackson and all this stuff. So I had to make a decision whether I was going to keep the music in or not. And it's like, I've been scoring really high all season with this routine, but what can I do next? And I feel like a lot of, like, my coach kind of breeds this controversy thing. Like, she likes getting people to talk. And that's something that I would say I do too, not on purpose, but I do kind of like to stand for something. So it was less about judge and jury, because at the end of the day, guess what? No one knows what happened in that bedroom except for Michael Jackson and the boys that were in the room. I was not trying to play judge and jury with that, but more so speak upon this narrative of joy and some things that my teammates have been through with sexual assault. And I just wanted to know, I didn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, but I did have to take that step in changing my entire floor routine. I didn't do the full floor routine in practice until I went out to competition. That was my first time ever doing a floor routine.
Oh, really?
Together. So yeah, that's another thing. So I was talking about injury with Jack. I went through an injury where they told me that I might not ever do gymnastics again. And so I didn't train a lot in college. It was mainly I would do what I needed to maintain a lot of visual imagery, certain stuff like that. And I would go out and compete the routines that I hardly trained. And I knew that if I messed them up, I'm like, oh man, I have to start training again. So I knew that one time counted when I get out in front of people and I'd have to hit it. So that floor routine, I got a 10-0, first time ever doing it.
And you know, it's crazy because it goes back to you, Damion. Like, you transfer up to a bigger school, you're working your ass off, but like, it gets me into like having that mental capacity of just belief. Because at the end of the day, you and I both transferred up to higher schools. Everybody was probably like, man, you ain't no way you could transfer up to schools and play and win and get buckets and do your thing. And same thing with you, Katelyn, on the floor routine. You're like, they're probably like, ain't no way you're gonna get a perfect 10. You're not even practicing anymore. So I want to talk about how it's less about skill, more about mental capacity and like that belief in yourself. And I think as soon as you start to listen to the outsiders or the naysayers, that can kind of mess up your mental a little bit. And like, Damion, you've been able to, you know, get through tons of things. So you go to Louisville, you only play 1 year at Louisville, right? It's only 1 year. You get no postseason. So it's like, did you know that before you went to Louisville that you weren't having a postseason, or is that something that happened like during the season where it's like, nah, you ain't competing in the tournament?
Nah, so we there was, you know, obviously stuff happened with, you know, in regards with the scandal. A book came out in October. So I committed in April. A book came out that following October. And then, you know, next thing you know, we're playing the season, everything's going well, getting some wins, all this stuff. And then we beat North Carolina. They were #1 in the country. We were like, all right, bet, you know, this gonna solidify us, getting the tournament, everything. The next day, self-imposed through the school postseason ban. And it was like, no NCAA tournament. All you have is these 6 regular season games left, and that's it.
How are you mentally able to adapt and to be able to know, like, damn, I got 6 games left? Did you put like pressure on yourself, like these last 6 games, I got to average 40? Or was it just like, you know what, I'm gonna do what I got to do, and whatever happens, happens. Because mentally, you have to, that does something to you.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that went through my mind, but I mean, similar to the first time I got hurt, the time I broke my hand, it was like, all right, so this is my journey. This is what I have to do, and whatever is meant for me is meant for me. But what I can control is going out here these next 6 games, doing what I'm supposed to do. I never wanted to show other people that I was an NBA player. It was always deep down to myself. I wanted to prove to myself that if I go against these guys that are supposed to be, drafted and playing and all this hype and these high recruits, if I could prove to myself, then that's the best thing that I could do. And then I know that what's meant for me is gonna happen eventually.
And Katelyn, that's very similar to you, because you said when you finally competed in college, you started doing things for yourself. Right. And I think a lot of times in life, as people and individuals, we get caught up in trying to do stuff for everyone else. And that goes back to another thing. We talked about mental, and it's like, you got to love self. You got to know yourself. And like, when you give that energy to yourself responds in ways that you can never know. But when you start doing stuff for others, you're not going to get that same conditioned response and outcome. So Katelyn, can you speak about when you chose that step and you started doing things for yourself? You're done with college now, and you had to make a decision. Do I keep competing or do I stop? What was that next, the next stage for you what you chose to do after college?
I don't think it was even a question. So gymnast careers are a lot different. After college, there's not a lot of options because college and elite are so different, like the Olympic route. It's very, very rare you see someone finish college and be like, I'm going to go to the Olympics. And I already knew my body was not about to hold up for the Olympics or anything like that. And it's crazy because I feel like for the first time, a gymnast has had success within college and like has brought attendance up and everywhere throughout the country. It was like, I am done with gymnastics, and I'm so happy that I left it this way, because not only did I end up leaving it, loving it, but it was like I helped make it a better sport in a sense.
Got it.
And shed some light on such.
Not in a sense, you definitely did.
At that time.
You definitely made it a better sport. Don't. So we're talking earlier, Damion, in 2013, she was the last person to beat Simone Biles. Like, nobody's ever beaten her, and she beat her in 2013, and she hasn't lost since. And like, she didn't want to bring it up, but I'm like, that's changing the sport, because the champion now, you're the last person to beat her. So I'm sure that did something to her, and her career and things like that. So like, what I like to do whenever I come on like my podcast and talk is like really highlight, what people have done. And like, Damion, man, you've been a true inspiration to me, just seeing, where you started at Calvert Hall to where you are now, to making the NBA, to competing in the D League, to staying at it. And, you're competing on a playoff team. And like, we had a couple injuries this year, but like, it's not too many people that have done or been through or came from where you came from and made it. And that's a true testimony to, like you said, you never did it for anyone else. You did it for yourself, to prove to yourself that you deserve to compete at the highest level. And, you reap the benefits. Where does that mindset come from? Would you say that's a DMV, Baltimore, Maryland thing? Or like, because everybody doesn't have that mental to do things for themselves, or to believe that they can do things outside the box, and you've done it. What can you say to like anybody that'll potentially see this, to like, if you have goals, whether it's being a doctor, being an NBA player, being an entrepreneur or CEO, like, where do you get this mental from, and what can you share to others that are maybe listening to this that need that type of courage?
I mean, really, I give all this to my mom. I mean, just the morals that she's instilled in me, the belief, the confidence. It was always when you do something, and it was more so when you go to college. It wasn't like an if or maybe, but her main thing was like, you're going to go to college. I don't know how you're going to get there, if she got to pay for it or if I got to pay for it or anything. But it's just, for her, it was when you do something. It was that belief, that inner confidence, that stability, that, all right, you're going to face highs and lows, but there's always going to be a way to weather the storm. And I just think that, and then just also going back to my mom, is the sacrifices that she's made. Like, she had me at, a younger age. I won't say exactly her age. I won't
Yeah, you don't gotta do that.
The sacrifices that she made to allow me to chase my dreams is something that I'm forever indebted to her. And that's why I know I can never give up, because she put a lot of her dreams, a lot of things she wanted to do on the back burner, whether it was driving an hour and a half, because we used to live an hour from Baltimore when I was going to Mount St. Joe my first 2 years. So
really? I didn't know that.
Bro, we would wake up at
Oh, wait, you went to
5
Mount St. Joe? I never know you went to Mount St. Joe.
For my first 2 years, and then I transferred to Cal Hall for my last 2.
Okay.
But that's another story for another day.
That's another story, yeah.
But my mom would wake up, we would wake up at 5:30 in the morning every day. She would drive an hour to take me to school. School didn't start till 8, so I get there at 6:30. Then she would work 10-hour shifts. She would pick me up at 6:30 or 7 at night, drive an hour, fight traffic back home, and did that every day for 2 years. I'll never forget that. Like, there's no way that I can try to repay her for what she did just because she wanted me to make sure that we didn't struggle. I got the best education I could get, and I could chase my dream. So,
you guys have way more similarities than you're wearing the same hoodie right now. Like, we just literally talked about Katelyn, and she told me when she was a kid, her parents split for her to make it in gymnastics. They split for 11 years, and it was just for her to be able to chase her dream. And it's like, I had no clue that this was, that this would be like this, but it's, I believe in the power of like minds, right? Although, Katelyn, you come from a totally different spot than where Damion comes from, but like, it goes back to, you're both beautifully molded. You've been molded into something that, it doesn't start with us. It starts with, parenting, your parents, mom, dad, and sacrifices that have been made. And Katelyn, your whole thing right now, before we close out, it is beautifully molded. We collaborated on this hoodie to kind of speak for what you're speaking about now. And like, can you give us like me and Damion and everybody else that would be hearing this, like, what exactly does being beautifully molded mean to you?
So in my head, I always like think about how connected we are, right? And like, obviously we didn't know each other before this, and just hearing each other's stories, like we have so many similarities, but so many differences, the experiences that have brought us to where we are, how we have been brought up, or how we've been shaped through social media. And I think social media is a huge part of our everyday life now. And 100%. I see a lot of people trying to be someone else or compare themselves to so many other people, when guess what? We are all shaped differently. We are beautifully molded because that's who we are. And if we're going to try to be another person, guess what? We will never be the best version of them. Like, we can only come second place to them. We can only be the best version of ourselves. So beautifully molded to me is letting your own unique individual light shine through whatever experiences have molded you.
Wow, that's strong. What would be your definition of being beautifully molded, Damion?
No, I mean, obviously, second in that, just like understanding that who you are and staying true to who you are and believing that you have a purpose. I feel like everyone has a purpose in this world. It doesn't matter what you do, but as long as you find out what that purpose is and you accept that and you hone in on that, everyone can have a positive impact in this world. And that's even something that, I tell the youth whenever I talk to them. It's like, you don't have to look at social media and see, oh, this person has this, or their body, or their money, or their looks, man. The best legacy that you can leave in this world is far away from money, far away. It's the impact that you can have on the next generation.
100%.
And it takes 30 seconds. It takes 30 seconds to make an impact in someone's life. So why wouldn't you want that to be something beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
For sure, 100%.
For sure.
One of the things I like to do with Active Dreamers is really bring people in from different walks of life, because you never know how these stories all come together. And this is last, 15, 20 minutes that we've been talking. You guys have so many similarities. I want to give a huge shout to your wife. I know she's doing some stuff in the media and the podcast with like mental health and things like that. I know Katelyn, that's very big in your stuff, being beautiful mode and having mental health. And like, I'm sure there are some things that Katelyn and you guys could connect offline. That's what this is about. It's not about me. This is about like bringing my folks together, my friends and I'm thankful that both of you came in. Damion, huge thanks to you for jumping in. I know you're off season, you're getting that work in, you're getting ready for next season. And Katelyn, same with you. I know you're doing tons of things. So I want to, first of all, say thank the both of you. And like, lastly, I want to make sure that you guys connect offline. Just make sure that you guys stay connected. And like, Katelyn, thank you so much for your time. Can you give us like a kind of close up of the hoodie, like kind of what it looks like? And,
yeah. Okay. So we got the rose in the front. And then we got some butterflies, roses, clouds. Can you guys see all that?
And that was designed by me, just so you know what I mean? Katelyn gave me the opportunity. I reached out to her. I said, man, I love what you're doing. Let's try to vertically integrate what you're doing and have some type of consumer product, like some merchandise. The rose is just love. The butterflies is rebirth. And, the clouds is just dreaming.
Thank you guys. Thanks for this. This is awesome. Like the hoodie is amazing, incredible. Damion, thanks for hopping on. And yeah, I would love to connect because I started doing, I don't know if you know the backstory to this hoodie, but I created a poem and directed, produced, and wrote this piece that goes along visuals for the poem. That's like my next path is I want to get into directing or creative directing in any, form that I can. So I'm starting with my own pieces. And then, so I'm doing some lives that are surrounded by mental health. So if like you or your wife or anyone wants to hop on,
and she's downstairs right now, but we can definitely connect on that. Cause she actually just, I think her 3rd episode of her podcast just came out today. So,
really? Where can we find that? Where can we find that?
Come on, man. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's Because Life with Katelyn Lee. So you know what I'm saying? It's on there. Obviously, just talking a lot about mental health, desensitizing the stigma around it, and obviously, just allowing people to be themselves and know who you are. So yeah, Because Life podcast with Katelyn Lee on Apple Podcasts.
Beautiful.
Got it. Once again, thank you guys so much. I love you, everybody. Stay positive and stay in the attitude of gratitude. So, another amazing episode, Step Back with Jack podcast. NBA player Damion Lee, Golden State Warriors. Gymnast champion Katelyn Ohashi came in, shared their story. And it's crazy that, stories are very similar. Everybody's story is very similar when you engage and you engage in that frequency that you feel. Like, for some reason, I'm thinking like Damion Lee would be a great person to come in here to talk to Katelyn, not only because Katelyn's from the Bay, lives in the Bay, and Damion plays for the Warriors, but their stories of inspiration and sacrifice, and it really intertwine. And that, that's what Active Dreamers is about, is really bringing all types of talent together from all different walks of life and sharing their stories and see where there's that similarity, and who knows where this could go, where they could grow from. But like, that's what it's all about, connecting people. And I want to say thank everybody for listening to another episode of Step Back with Jack podcast on Active Dreamers. We'll have many more. This is an amazing story. I hope people get some gems from this. I like to drop a lot of gems. And one of the biggest things that I've learned, or things that I picked up from this podcast today, was really believing in yourself and really having the mental capacity to believe in your truth, believe in your dreams, because it only takes one person, one team, one corporation to believe in you. So why would you care about what everybody else thinks? Tons of people care when it only takes one to believe. So everyone out there, continue to live in the attitude of gratitude, believe in yourself, do things for yourself, be selfish with yourself, be selfish, and reap all the benefits that you deserve, because you can control your own narrative, and you can have, do, be whatever you want to be in this life. This is another episode of Step Back with Jack. Much love.